That night, where were you when your closest friend took its last breath? While Lazarus was dying in Bethany, Jesus stood miles away. Why? How could love, stronger than death itself, allow such agony? 4 days later, standing beside a grave reeking of death, the words Jesus spoke would change not just one man, but the entire course of history. Something was terribly wrong in Bethany. The sounds coming from Lazarus's house had been worrying the neighbors since morning. First came the soft coughing, then labored breathing, and finally the desperate cries of Martha and Mary spilling into the streets. In the small village, everyone knew everyone else. Lazarus was one of the strongest men in town. 35 years old, powerfully built, a man who never got sick. He'd rise early to work his fields, spend evenings talking with neighbors. Everyone knew about his friendship with Jesus, too. But now, that strong man was writhing in his bed. His fever hadn't broken in 2 days. Martha had tried every healing remedy the village knew, boiled every herb, prayed every prayer. Mary never left her brother's side. The neighbor women had gathered outside the door, quietly monitoring the situation. Old Esther said, "This sickness doesn't look familiar to me. How does a fever stay this high while a man wastes away so quickly?" Sarah was worried too. Maybe it's the work of evil spirits. By evening, things had gotten much worse. Lazarus's breathing had become shallow. His lips were turning blue. Martha was thinking they needed to send word to Jesus as a last resort. "Someone needs to get word to Master Jesus," Martha said, trying to hold back her tears. "If he comes, our brother will be healed. I believe that." Jacob, one of the young men from the village, wanted to help. "I'll go," he said. "I can reach him in a day on horseback. But Martha, you need to understand. It'll take time for Master Jesus to get here." As Jacob rode off into the darkness, 3 hearts in that small Bethany house were beating with the same hope. Would Jesus make it in time? Could Lazarus hold on? But the real disaster hadn't even begun yet. When Jacob's message reached Jesus, the disciples were talking anxiously among themselves. They had seen the expression on Jesus' face, that mixture of deep pain and determination. But there was a problem. Bethany was very close to the Judean border, and that area had become a death trap for Jesus. "Master," Peter said, unable to hide the worry in his voice, "going to Bethany is extremely dangerous. Remember, just last week, the Jewish leaders tried to stone you. If we go back there now, they'll kill me," Jesus finished, his voice containing neither fear nor hesitation. Thomas stood up. "Then why should we go? We're sorry about Lazarus, of course, but is it worth risking your life?" Jesus remained silent for a long time. He was thinking about the message Jacob had brought. "Lazarus is very sick. Martha and Mary want you to come immediately. Every hour that passes makes Lazarus weaker," Jesus finally said. "He's like a brother to me, my closest friend. Do I know the danger? Of course. The Jewish leaders are looking for any opportunity to kill me." "Then why are we going?" Philip asked. "This time is different. This time, I need to be there physically." The disciples looked at each other. They recognized that determination in Jesus' voice. "Master," John said slowly, "because we follow you, we're in danger too. If the Jewish leaders can't find you, they might come after us." "I know this risk," Jesus said. "I'm not telling you not to come. Make this decision for yourselves. But I have to go." Thomas took a deep breath. "Then let's go. Let's die with the Master." These words created a deep silence among the disciples. Death had never been spoken of so openly. Jesus stood up. "We leave tomorrow morning. Pray tonight, because this isn't just a friendship visit. This is the beginning of something much bigger." They would face a terrible choice. Would they risk their own lives to save their closest friend? Jesus couldn't sleep that night. He sat in his tent, thinking deeply. His heart ached, both for Lazarus and for the impossible choice he faced. His friendship with Lazarus went back 10 years. When Jesus hadn't yet begun his ministry, he had traveled from Nazareth to Bethany for trade and met Lazarus there. They had connected immediately. Since then, whenever Jesus visited that region, he always stayed at Lazarus's house. They would talk long into the evenings, discussing Jesus' teachings. Lazarus had become one of Jesus' closest friends. Now that brother was wrestling with death, and Jesus was here, waiting at a safe distance. "Master, what are you thinking about?" John's voice pulled Jesus from his thoughts. "I'm thinking about Lazarus," Jesus said honestly, "about the last words he said to me when we met." "What did he say?" Jesus took a deep breath. "Master, your path isn't easy. Great troubles are coming your way soon. But know this, no matter what happens, I'm with you." But now he's the one who needs me by his side, and I'm here. John sat down beside Jesus. "Master, there's something else bothering you, isn't there?" Jesus looked up into the young disciple's eyes. "John, if I go to Bethany, they'll try to kill me." "Yes. And if I don't go, maybe my dearest friend will die." Jesus clenched his hands. "Is this fair? I say I came to love people, to save them. But when someone I love is in danger, am I thinking about my own safety?" "Master, you're not just thinking about yourself. You're thinking about all the people." "Or maybe it's the opposite," Jesus said slowly. "Maybe the real message is hidden in my risking my life for someone I love." Jesus stood up, left the tent, and looked at the stars. "Father," he began to pray, "what kind of test is this? While my dearest friend is dying, should I be thinking about my own safety? If I go now," he continued to himself, "they'll kill me. But if I don't go, Lazarus will die." Peter was also awake. He came to Jesus. "Master, have you decided?" "Yes, Peter, tomorrow we're going to Bethany." "Even knowing the consequences?" "Even knowing the consequences, because love must be stronger than fear." Every second, the pressure of making an impossible decision was increasing, but now he knew clearly. Love had to be stronger than every kind of fear. When Jesus and the disciples set out, a second message from Bethany caught up with them on the road. This time, the messenger was a young woman in tears, Selma, a close friend of Martha and Mary. "You're too late," she said breathlessly. Lazarus is dead." These words exploded like a bomb among the disciples. Peter froze. "When?" "Last night." He breathed his last as the sun was setting. Jesus seemed to turn to stone. He said nothing, just listened. "How are Martha and Mary?" John asked. Selma began crying. "They're devastated. Martha keeps saying, 'If Master Jesus had been here, my brother wouldn't have died.' Mary won't speak at all." The disciples looked at Jesus in amazement. What would they do now? "It gets worse," Selma continued. A group of Jewish leaders has come to Bethany. They've sent spies everywhere. If you enter Bethany, they'll capture you immediately." This was the final blow. Not only had their friend died, but going there would be certain suicide. Thomas took a deep breath. "There's no point in going now. Lazarus is dead." "You're right," Andrew said. "Let's turn back." But Jesus remained silent. Selma continued, "There's more I need to tell you. What people are saying in the village? People are blaming Master Jesus." "How are they blaming him?" Peter asked. "They're saying that if Master Jesus truly came from God, he would have known his friend was going to die. That he allowed Lazarus to die might be proof that he's not a real prophet." These words deeply affected Jesus. He hadn't just lost his dearest friend, but the people were regarding him with suspicion. "Some are going even further," Selma said. "They're saying Master Jesus deliberately abandoned Lazarus to die." It was too late now. Lazarus had stopped breathing exactly 2 days ago. The wailing of Martha and Mary had enveloped the entire village of Bethany. When Jesus arrived, the only thing he would face would be a cold body and eyes that blamed him completely. Jewish spies were everywhere. The death trap had been set perfectly. "Master," John said quietly, "maybe we really should turn back. The time for miracles has passed." Jesus finally spoke. "The time for miracles has passed? Who said that? Death isn't an obstacle to miracles. Sometimes it's the beginning of the greatest miracle." The words that came from Jesus' mouth stunned all his disciples. "Lazarus is sleeping," he said calmly. "I'm going to wake him up." The disciples looked at each other. What did this mean? Hadn't Selma just said Lazarus was dead? "Master," Peter said hesitantly, "Selma said Lazarus died. How can he be sleeping?" Jesus walked for a long time without answering. Then he stopped and turned to his disciples. "When I tell you things, you don't understand. Lazarus is dead, but death, to me, is like sleep." "What do you mean?" Andrew asked. "What I mean is this," Jesus said with that strange light in his eyes. "You think death is the end, but I see it as temporary sleep." Thomas stepped forward. "Master, if he's sleeping, he'll wake up on his own. Why should we put ourselves in danger to wake him?" Jesus' patience was beginning to wear thin. "Thomas, Lazarus is dead. I'm telling you plainly, but I'm telling you this. This isn't the end of the story, it's the beginning." "You've been following me for 3 years," he said slowly. "You've seen blind eyes opened. You've seen paralyzed people walk. So let me ask you this. Which of these miracles is harder? A blind man seeing or a dead man living?" This question sent everyone into deep thought. "Master," John said carefully, Are you planning to raise Lazarus?" The mysterious expression on Jesus' face became even more pronounced. "Planning? No, John. This is the Father's will." "The Father's will?" Peter's voice was almost a whisper. "So Lazarus dying was also—" "It happened with the Father's permission," Jesus completed. "I could have saved Lazarus, but the Father wanted something greater to happen." The disciples were truly frightened now. Jesus was talking about death as if he were discussing everyday matters. "Master," Thomas said, "if you're really thinking about doing that thing to Lazarus, have you considered the consequences?" "I know the consequences," Jesus said with certainty. "This miracle will be a death sentence for me. Then why do it? Because people are afraid of death. Someone needs to show them that death isn't the real enemy. Selma had been uncomfortable listening to this conversation. Master Jesus, are you really saying you can raise someone from the dead? Jesus turned to her. Selma, do you believe this is possible? I don't know. You'll see, Jesus said simply. All of you will see. I'm going to wake Lazarus, and this awakening will be the beginning of a new age for all humanity. When they reached the entrance to Bethany, the scene that greeted Jesus was heartbreaking. Sounds of mourning rose from every part of the village. Women dressed in black were walking around. But what was truly surprising was how differently the crowd received him. In the past, when Jesus came to Bethany, people would run joyfully to meet him. Now there were distant, accusing looks. Here he comes, someone whispered. He's late. Jesus could feel this atmosphere, and a pain was growing inside him. Just then, Martha ran out from her house. Her face was wet with tears. As soon as she saw Jesus, she started running toward him, but stopped halfway. Master, she said, her voice breaking. Master, if you had been here, my brother would never have died. These words pierced Jesus' heart like an arrow. His dearest friend's sister was blaming him. Martha, Jesus began, but Martha continued. We've been preparing for the funeral for 2 days. We've been crying for 2 days. Mary hasn't eaten anything. Jesus' eyes began to fill with tears. This was a sight his disciples had never seen. Jesus was crying. Where is she? Jesus asked. At home in Lazarus' room. She won't come out. Jesus began walking toward the house. The crowd followed him silently. When they reached the house, Mary's crying could be heard from inside. Jesus stopped, took a breath, and went in. Mary was sitting beside Lazarus' bed. When she saw Jesus, she crawled toward him. Master, she said through tears, where were you? My brother loved you so much. Your name was even his last word. This was unbearable now. Jesus' tears began flowing uncontrollably. He bent down, lifted Mary up, and embraced her. The crowd watched this scene in amazement. Look how much he loved him, someone whispered. But there were also skeptics. Couldn't the man who opened blind eyes save his friend from death? Jesus heard these words. He lifted his head and looked at the crowd. There wasn't just grief in his eyes anymore. There was something else. That light? Where did you put him? He asked. In the tomb, Martha said. Take me there. The crowd followed Jesus in amazement. As they walked toward the cemetery, Jesus' steps had changed. He was no longer walking like a grieving friend, but like someone moving with purpose. When they reached the cemetery, Jesus stood for a long time in front of Lazarus' tomb. Jesus placed his hand on the tombstone, closed his eyes. His lips were moving. He was praying. Finally, he opened his eyes and turned to the crowd. Remove this stone. Everyone froze. But Master, Martha said, it's been 4 days. By now, there's a stench. Jesus turned to her. Didn't I tell you? If you believe, you will see God's glory. Everyone in the crowd understood. Something had definitely changed in Jesus. As the tombstone rolled away, the crowd held its breath. The smell of 4 days of death hit their nostrils. Jesus stood at the mouth of the tomb and looked up to heaven. Then that voice came, powerful authoritative. "Lazarus, come out." The silence from the tomb continued. Then a sound of movement came from the depths. And then the impossible happened. A figure wrapped in burial cloths appeared at the tomb's entrance. With slow movements, he began coming out. His hands and feet were wrapped in burial strips. But he was walking. He was alive. The crowd screamed. Some ran away in fear. Others froze in amazement. "Unwrap him and let him go," Jesus said calmly. Martha and Mary ran to their brother. They began unwrapping the burial cloths, and there emerged Lazarus, living, breathing Lazarus. "My sisters," he said. The two sisters threw themselves on him. All three were crying, tears of joy. As the crowd began to recover from their shock, whispers rose, "This is impossible. He was dead for 4 days. How can this be?" Lazarus stood up and approached Jesus. "Master," he began. "I know," Jesus said, embracing him. "Welcome back, my friend." This wasn't just a miracle. This was a moment that changed the meaning of death. Jesus turned to the crowd. "Do you see? This wasn't just for Lazarus. This was for all of you. You too have spiritually dead areas in your lives, dreams buried in hopelessness, hearts surrounded by fears." People listened carefully. But I'm telling you this: nothing is too lost to be restored. Martha stepped forward. "I blamed you. I'm sorry." "I doubted too," said a man from the village. "Do you see?" Jesus said. "The miracle isn't just raising the dead, it's changing the living." Now the question is, what does this story mean to you? Which dead areas in your own life need to hear Jesus' voice saying, "Come out"? Maybe today is your Lazarus moment. Maybe right now it's time for that dream, that relationship, that hope you thought was dead to come out. Maybe. In our next story, we'll tell how the lives of those who witnessed this miracle changed afterward and what Lazarus experienced in his second life. Because the real story begins after the miracle.